computer again.
Okay, got it.
Good.
All right.
That was quite an interesting moment for it to stop, wasn't it? Because we were just getting to look at what's just
Yeah,
going on.
it's like this is it. Like it's part of, and I understand that this happens to me a lot. It is the resistance, and I created, and it's there, and I can see it every single time. And it will like, and that's what I'm saying. Like it is very, very hard. Try my whatever the me or the identification with me is doing so much effort to not let me get to where,
Yes.
like it's working so hard,
Well,
and
it's actually
this
the thing.
happens a lot.
Yes. Well, the things that we can stop that quite easily because it's all actually based on consent. Because the truth is that you're just resting as the infinite being. So what's always going on? So when Rika was a little girl, all forms were arising equally and effortlessly. So whatever those forms were at that time, the taste of the food or a feeling of tiredness or the sound of your mum in the kitchen or the sound of your dad coming home, whatever was going on, there was just neutrality. And all of those forms were arising, and they were arising in unity because the dualistic mind hadn't been activated at that stage. But then gradually, by being called by name, there's a reference to you as a little girl. And to begin with, the infinite being would know that there's like a little game being played. And so the infinite being would listen to the mum and the dad saying, "Oh, this is our little girl. She likes, watching TV and reading books and doing drawings or whatever it is." And and there would just be the noticing of that little game. And initially you wouldn't be affected by it. So you'll just think, well, they seem to be having a bit of fun playing this funny game. I'll join in with them. So gradually they're calling you by name, and you think, well, they want to pretend that I'm this body mind which is sitting here, on the sofa. I'll go along with it. So you start replying to them as though you really are the little girl. And then, it becomes more sophisticated because everything in this world is designed to make us identify. It's designed to try to create identification with the body mind, with the thoughts, the emotions, all the different forms appearing. The education system's designed to create a sense of individuality. The way the government works, the media, the media is very much, especially at the moment, sort
Just
of,
make everything more complicated.
well, it's brilliant because you've
I'm not
included.
connecting with that.
No,
It's
that's
not my
fantastic.
world.
Fantastic. So the thing to know is that the the different modes of experience, they're all to do with consent, because you remain as the infinite being. All you ever are is awareness aware of itself, either in the simplest form of awareness or in a disguised version. So there can be the disguised version of the body of bliss, or there can be the disguised version of effortless being, which is the body of wisdom, where all forms arise equally and effortlessly without any kind of judgment. But then, as we consent to the game that our parents invite us to play with them, which is where they start referring to you as a separate individual, that's a form of consent once you begin to play that game, because you're consenting to play in that mode of activity. We don't realize the extent of what we're playing, because the thing is, with duality, it's a very deep hole in one way. And we see it initially it's things like comparing one thing to another, but it can go very deep. And so consenting to the idea that it's you that's creating this will give the direct experience of the idea that it is you creating it. But really, you're remaining as the pristine infinite being. It's just that the thinking process, you're actually being invited to identify with it. So did you read Eckhart Tolle's book years ago, For the Power of
Years
Now?
ago, long time ago, yes.
Can you remember the chapter on the pain body?
How? I no. Probably
Right.
when you're going to say it, then I will
Don't
say
remember.
yes, I remember, but not, no.
So what Eckhart's describing there is it's this process of consent. So we're actually resting as the pristine infinite being. So in this moment, or in any moment, we are only ever the infinite being, which is just, it's neutral, it's timeless, it's present, it's aware of itself, but it isn't bound up with any kind of forms at all. And so we're also remaining as sovereign being, which means that we actually decide what we consent to. But lots of structures in this world, they're designed to make us consent to things without realizing that we're giving consent. That's how the legal system works, the medical system, the financial system. You know, it's all, you know, getting people to consent. And so playing the game with our parents, where they're inviting you to identify with the body mind and pretend you're a little girl called Rika, is the beginning of that process. But it never actually took place. And the thing to know is that there are two forms of intelligence which are available to humans. The one is the intelligence available in the body of wisdom or effortless being. And that's a combination of infinite intelligence with infinite love. The intelligence which is available in the mental body is a combination of intelligence and fear. So we actually have these options which are available to us in any moment, and we as the sovereign being can decide what we're going to opt for. So there is no pile of karma to resolve. There is no, you know, there are no subconscious programs. There are tendencies where we've identified or consented to certain experiences in the past, and they've created a kind of delivery system, because if we've consented to things in the past, it sets a precedent for things of a similar frequency to be delivered to us. And the simple knowing, though, that you're resting as the pristine infinite being, you never became anything other than that. So everything actually only takes place in this moment. So here we are just resting as the infinite being. That's all we can be. But there can be an invitation which arises. So you just described an invitation which was delivered, which is the idea that the mind doesn't want to let go of being center stage and thinking it's calling the shots. But actually, the mind's never been center stage. But if we consent to the idea that it is, and everything in this world is reinforcing the idea that the mind is center stage, then we actually consent, we, the infinite being, consent to giving the authority to the mind. And then it seems to be withholding things, creating all sorts of things. But it's only by virtue of your consent that you give it that power. It doesn't have any.
Why do you do that? Why would the infinite being consent with the limitations?
Well, it's a very sophisticated game that's being played in one way. And in Indian terms, you know, they describe it in the yugas that there are these different ages. They call them the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, the iron age. They're called the yugas. And the golden age is where infinite intelligence combined with infinite love is predominating. So it's where all beings are functioning from their true nature. So they're functioning from effortless being. What happens, though, is there's a decline, and it's best not to think of this in a literal sense, but it's more like a play. So it's like a 5-act play. So there's the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, the iron age, and then the return to the golden age. And we're currently at the point of the end of the Iron Age and the return to the Golden Age. And so what's predominating, well, what actually declines from the Golden Age to the Iron Age is love. So in the Golden Age, the intelligence which is operating is divine intelligence. So it's a combination of infinite intelligence and infinite love, which results in infinite harmony, infinite possibilities. And by the time it declines to the current age, which in Hindu terms is called Kali Yuga, which is it's a kind of degraded age, the element of love has sort of dissolved. So the creation we're experiencing is based on a combination of intelligence and fear. And so all the structures in this world have become predatory. So the beings eat the animals, the humans eat the animals eat each other, they eat the plants, the birds eat the insects. And the reason it's like that is because this current creation, this three-dimensional world and beyond, isn't in alignment with divine consciousness. It's actually, as Ramana Maharshi describes it, he says it's an overgrowth. So that's the reason that the mind functions the way it is, because not only is it predatory from the human level down, it's also predatory in a kind of energetic sense. It's like we're living in what is like an energy harvesting system. And the way the energy and potential of humans is compromised is through identification with those lower frequency emotions, in the way Eckhart described it. So the way he describes it is, we're resting as effortless being, we're in a state of peace, but then an invitation can come in for us to identify with grief or with depression or with jealousy or with, fear or any of those kind of emotions. And they're actually tailor-made. So it depends on the tendencies which have existed. So for instance, there could have been tendencies that you saw your mum and dad operating under. So, there could have been a predominance of anger, with your dad, or there could have been a predominance of fear with your mum, for instance. And you learn those modes of behavior, you're familiar with them, because before you're born, all of those tendencies are actually downloaded into your system so that you're familiar with them and you tend to play them out. As you say, you've consciously stopped that process with your own children.
I think I remember that download. I remember it's one of those things that I know what happened before I came, like I know what happened with the awareness, because it's not like people or you make it that because that's what that's the words that you can give it, but it's not that. It's just it's not even a knowing. It's just there is no word for it, no. But it is. I know what no. For the sake, I don't have a better word, so let me use no. I know that how it was
structured,
how it was structured, and I see like. This is what's going to happen. It was like a big play. You're going to play this role. You're going to play that role. You're going to do this for her. And then we're going to make like a big mess. And then that is going to allow you to get to the other side, like something like that. Like it's not what it is, because I can't explain it, but it was like what you call the download. I can feel that moment. I know that. And I knew that it's there, you can't not. That's the whole thing. Like I cannot say that that's not true, because it's true. I know it's true. I could only like suppress it and not bring it up because it's uncomfortable for people.
Well, effectively, to get into this realm, we have to consent to the limitations which are existing here, and one of them is that the structure you just described. But the thing to know is that we never actually we're never actually affected by that in reality. It's the same as it, a good way to look at the koshas, which is those 5 options. It's a bit like a theme park. So you remain as the infinite being, and then you have these 5 rides available. So there's the bliss ride, which you can go on, or there's the all forms arising equally and effortlessly in neutrality ride you can go on. There's the dualistic roller coaster of fear and opposite experiences and contrast. There's the emotional roller coaster you can go on, and then there's the dense experience of physicality which you can go on. And we can consent to experiences in each of these, but the truth is we never become any of them. It's just that we've consented to the ride.
You never become it, but they're there because that's the experience that you...
Because we've consented to the ride, yeah.
Yes, but it's part of human, like, it's as if you get pressed into that human body, and then you, in a way, there is also that you still stay what you are, but you also have the limitations of the human body. Like we can't fly, or we can fly, but because of how we are structured
currently,
no, they play it out. Let's play that movie today. And that's, I would use that term. I would say choose your movie well. Like I would like, because that's, but that's what you explain as you give consent, which is such a great way of saying it. I never had the words, to express most of the things that were happening to me, because I never.
Well, it's good to review in terms of consent, because
I'm going to do that.
Even the idea that we're restricted by this physical body and we're existing within it is also a form of consent.
Yes.
And we can withdraw that consent. I had an experience in about 1980 where things sort of turned inside out. So all the programming had convinced me to believe that I was existing as a human being in time and space. I was existing in the body. The thoughts and awareness and emotions were all arising within the body. But then I mentioned this experience in one of the interviews I did. It's where I was meditating. I was sitting on the bed, and there was this B91 bus which used to come past the house. And there was suddenly a switch where I realized the bus was within me. And from that moment, I've known that, well, using the Indian term, aham brahmasmi, which means that I am the totality of existence, it means that everything is actually arising within us. So I can consciously switch between the human mode of experience, like we're having a conversation here, but because there's a spiritual element to it, there can be the maintenance of the knowing that everything is appearing within this infinite ocean of beingness. So, you're remaining as this infinite ocean of beingness. One of the forms arising within that is the body mind of Rika. The thoughts are arising, the sensations, the emotions, they're all waving, all those forms are arising as waves on this infinite ocean that you've never left. But we can consent to it, to have the subject-object mode of experience. And so a friend of mine, he says, I only become or appear to become the individual when someone knocks my door. So we're actually resting as the infinite being all the time. It's just that when we're having a conversation with somebody, or somebody asks us a question, or the phone rings, or we need to speak to somebody, then we assume the role of individuality, and it's something we can play. But it's like an actor playing a part. We remain as the infinite being, and we can play the role of the character. So the infinite being can play the role of being Rika without it affecting the infinite being in the slightest. And that's exactly as it is between the actor and the character being played. So the actor never becomes the character, and the infinite being never becomes the individual.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, but you say you can switch consciously between, like, I 100% know how it feels to become like, I can be on the road in my car and be the road, be the trees, be the other cars, be every, like I'm just, it's like, so I know that feeling,
Yeah.
but I cannot consciously choose for that feeling.
Right.
It overcomes me, like it happens. And then the only thing I try to do is stay in that moment as long as possible, because it feels that it's like a very,
Mm.
it's very blissful.
Yes.
But it goes away. And then I have to wait until the next time. And that's maybe why I'm seeking, because I know the taste, I know how it feels, I know the smell, I know it all, and then I lose it. So it's like I walk in and out, and I can't do that consciously. So how do you do that?
Well, it's firstly knowing that it's always there. We kind of consent to the idea that we're moving in and out when we never are. So in this moment, there is just this infinite field of awareness, and we can just notice what's appearing. So in this environment, there's awareness of the computer screen, there's awareness of the image of Rika, there's awareness of the two voices in conversation, there's awareness of traffic in the distance, the sunlight coming through the window, the objects in the room. So we're already the totality, we're already this infinite open space within which everything is appearing. So it's already totally complete. We're already experiencing and living unity consciousness from moment to moment. It's just that we can, if we consent to, assume the role of individuality where we pretend we're the individual. So rather than seeing all the forms arising equally and effortlessly, we assume the role of being an individual where we see ourselves as being the individual, and then we see everything in what seems to be the outside world as being separate. But actually, that separation never took place, because all there ever is in this moment, there is still only unity. So there are thoughts arising effortlessly, there are emotions arising effortlessly, there are, there's awareness of the objects in the room, there's awareness of sensations like the discomfort on the seat. All of those forms, they're all arising, and they're arising as waves on this infinite single ocean of beingness. And that's all it ever is. It's just that you have this secondary mode, which you've consented to, this little ride, which is called the subject-object ride. You buy the ticket for that ride, you get on it, and when you get in that ride, it appears as though you're existing as a separate individual.
Yeah.
And it's just a bit of fun, really, but it never took place.
Yeah, it's true. So I think this whole thing about consent is very powerful. I think it's something I have to just like you say, go back and see what I consent to. Like
Yeah.
what is it that I consent to, and it's not real.
Yeah.
And I can just let it go.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the missing link.
Good.
Because I know I know awareness. It's not like I don't.
Yeah.
Because I also enjoy, like, I cannot go look for something that I already have. Like, it's there. I have it. It's there every moment of the day.
Yeah.
And so the seeking is more like what you would say, understanding what I consent to.
Yeah.
So that's why I get out.
Mm.
And it's for me, it's very easy to be in, like your friends.
Mm.
I go in when somebody knocks on the door.
Yes.
When I'm alone,
You're not
that's it.
existing as an individual.
Then I'm like, that's it. But then, of course, when the life hits, like when somebody knocks on the door, which is like I'm working, that's when I consent for a certain ride.
Yes.
And that ride is like it's like it's the same ticket every time somebody knocks on the door. There we go on the same ride.
Yeah.
I don't like the ride, but I'm gonna go on the ride anyway. It's like, oh my God, there's this ride again. I better close that door. And so I just don't want to go on that ride anymore.
Yeah.
But it is also because you consent to it that it keeps on showing up.
Yeah. But
because otherwise it couldn't show up.
Yeah. Well, there are one or two things I want to just share with you. Firstly, to see how you can stay off the ride. And then I'd also like to...
Oh yeah, please let me stay off that ride. You know how exhausting that is? And knowing that you're on the ride. I know I'm on it. Like I'm so, yeah, here we go. Oh my God. Yeah, this is the truth.
And also there are one or two things I want to share with you which will help you to understand the nature of these rides, how to decline them, and also the bigger picture that's being played, because there's actually a very big reason. In one sense, it is only like a big story, but it's something which is really worth knowing, and I'm going to share that with you. So but let's just see if we can cancel these tickets for this ride for minutes.
I can tell you, oh my God, I'm gonna write a book one day, I think, with all my rides and how they came back over and over again. Just for the fun of it. Just to laugh and look at myself like, really? Oh my God.
You seem to have bought the buy one, get one free ticket.
Oh, I got way more for free than I paid for. I'm so good at sales. It's true though. I'm a really good. I can find the sales. I should really look into that too. Oh my God. Yeah, I got way more than 1+1.
Well, let's just have a little look for a minute. So we'll just complete the exercise we were having a look at earlier, because this helps to make the distinction between resting as effortless being and then stepping onto the ride. So firstly, just notice it to see if there are any thoughts appearing in this moment, or if the mind's just quiet. So
there are some thoughts.
Okay. So let's use the impersonal terminology. So we'll say there is awareness of thoughts appearing effortlessly.
There is awareness of thoughts appearing effortlessly.
That's good. So there's nothing you're doing to initiate those. They're just arising effortlessly.
They're arising effortlessly.
Good. Are there any emotions or sensations arising at the moment?
There is awareness of sensations arising.
Okay, that's good. So are there any sounds at the moment? Are there any sounds either inside the building or outside the building?
Yes.
Could you let me know?
There's awareness of sounds.
Okay, could you let me know one of them, one that's fairly constant rather than one that's coming and going?
There is awareness of the constant noise in my head, like I have tinnitus. So it's the awareness of the ringing in my ear, my head.
Okay. We can use that then. Actually, that's fine. So firstly, what I'd like you to do is just directly notice that. So notice that that ringing in the ears is just arising effortlessly. There isn't anything you're doing to create that. So just notice there's effortless awareness of that, and notice it impersonally rather than thinking, this is Rika's tinnitus. So just notice it impersonally. So there's just awareness of that sensation. So just notice that fully and directly. And then, so the only place that it can be known fully and directly like that is when we're utilizing effortless being. And then there's the option to engage the mind. So the way we engage the mind is to comment. So what I'd like you to do is just to engage the mind to describe that sensation. just describe it or comment on it in some way.
So it's like a constant noise that's there that I can pay attention to or not pay attention to. I can choose to hear it or I can choose not to hear it.
Good. That's great. So you can see that sensation is just arising effortlessly. There isn't anything that's being done to make it arise.
Yes.
So you could say that's effortlessly known because you're not initiating anything, you're not making it that happen. So it's just effortless awareness of that sensation. And then we have the option, we can consent to utilizing the mind. So if we utilize the mind, it's a bit like putting a car into gear and it creates motion. So when we engage the mind, so I asked you to engage the mind to comment on the sensation or that sound in the head, which is what you did. So you engage the mind to conceptualize about that sensation, which is directly known by awareness. So it's awareness that's aware of the ringing in the ears. But then the mind is like a secondary device, which is like a little football commentator. So it wants a bit of the action. So it tries to give a full description of what that sensation is, but it's always detached from the direct knowing. It's only giving rise to a commentary. So
yeah, I can see that difference. Very obvious. Yeah, cool.
So the one is effortless. So everything which is to do with effortless being is impersonal. So there's impersonal.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It is so cool. It is so cool. I can see that difference. It's so cool. Like, that's really cool. I'm sorry. I just don't want to start laughing, but it's like.
No, it's fantastic because it's in this distinction that lies the ability to disconnect your energy from the mind.
I'm just going, like, thinking now, other stuff. What comes naturally, and then the commentator.
Yeah.
What's there, and what you say, how the mind wants its peace and starts like yabbling right away. It's there, and then the mind starts yabbling.
Yeah.
It is funny.
It's a funny little game, isn't it?
I'm so sorry. This is
great
just
because
so ridiculous. Oh
the
my
laughter
God.
shows the establishment in the body of wisdom, but also being very close to the body of bliss as well. That's why the laughter's arising. So that's a really great sign.
It's really interesting. Oh my God. There is the knowing. There's the knowing and nothing happens. It's just there. And then boom, that chatter starts.
And the thing to know is that you're always just resting as effortless being. So all the forms are arising effortlessly. So the thoughts arise effortlessly.
Yeah.
Sensations, the perceptions, they're all arising effortlessly. They're always just known by effortless being. But then there's a little jabbering mind on the sideline wanting to be commenting and saying what's going on. And that requires effort. So when we consent to engaging the mind, that's how our energy supply is being compromised, because it's effortless just to notice everything arising. So at any time of the day and night, you can just rest as effortless being. And that's just a matter of noticing what's arising.
This is just unbelievable. I can't explain this. This is really weird. Unreal. Because it's that is funny.
That's fantastic.
That is really cool. I can't wait to share this with my daughter.
Brilliant.
This is cool. It's there.
Well, it's the solution, because it's when you realize that engaging the mind is optional, because because resting as effortless being and watching thoughts arise is like sitting in the car when it's stationary, and you just notice everything going on, and then you have the option to put it into gear and start moving and having those experiences of motion. And that takes energy or fuel. And it's the same with the mind's like this little ride, and you can either keep it disengaged or you can engage it, and you can create motion and you can create the commentary. But because you're the sovereign being, you decide whether you engage it or not. It's just that this world has tried to convince you that the mind's compulsory when it's optional.
Yeah, you can just make it shut up.
Hmm.
Wow. I don't know what to say.
Well, it's amazing that
There's nothing to say. Like,
you've seen it so clearly. Exactly, yeah.
oh my God. I'm sorry. It is
No,
so,
it's great. It's fantastic.
um, how am I saying it? This is so liberating. It's like I can just turn it on and off in where I'm sitting, which
Yeah.
is this is insane.
Hmm.
I could never do that. But there is nothing to do. That's the whole thing. If I don't do anything, it doesn't appear.
No,
There's
be
nothing when
yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. It takes no effort to be.
Exactly. There's nothing going on now. Even when I look for it, it's not there. I'm so used to have it always there.
Hmm.
It's like not there. Wow, this is unbelievable. It's not there.
Fantastic.
How did that happen? That now I'm thinking
Yeah, exactly. That's the
immediately. You see that? How it's like I don't for one moment I'm not like I just let it sleep, but it's fine. I caught it.
yes. But
It's
once
there.
you've seen it, you can't go back to identification with the mind. So once you see that it's optional, it remains optional. And you can train yourself quite easily, because over the next few days and weeks, it's good just, when you have a moment, it's just quite good to go through that simple sequence to remind you and to
Yeah.
actually begin to train the mind to be quiet. So you just notice what's arising, starting with thinking, because thinking thoughts are probably the most subtle, and then the emotions, and then the sensations or perceptions. So that's why I did it in that order, so that it's the noticing of the thoughts first and then the emotion second. So when Rika wakes in the morning, there can just be the noticing of the forms appearing effortlessly. So there's effortless awareness of the duvet on the body. There's effortless awareness of the body being warm. There can be effortless awareness of some thoughts appearing, and they can just arise effortlessly. We don't need to grab them or do anything with them. And then there can be subtle emotions, or the light through the window, or the sound of a car going by. And all that arises effortlessly, because where we actually exist is we exist as the effortless, timeless being. That's our home. We've never moved from there. It's just that there has been the option to engage the mind and have this dualistic experience and have all the commentary that goes with it. But actually, it's optional.
Yeah. It's very again, I have no words. It's very I can see the difference between the awareness of thought and thought.
Great. Well, that's the distinction between effortless being is just what you truly are, and what's available in effortless being is all creativity arises in effortless being, and things like intuition or inspiration or telepathy and all of the psychic abilities you have, they're all arising in effortless being. And then there's the mind, which is the commentator. And you can either consciously engage the mind or you can turn it off. But the thing to know is that the thoughts and the emotions, they're actually being beamed into the body mind. They're not our own. Even everything in the world is trying to convince us that they belong to us. So the idea that the emotional turbulence is ours or the mental turbulence is ours, and then we consent to that. Most people consent to that idea. They consent to the idea that we have all of these subconscious programs, and all these things we need to either release or welcome or fully feel the feelings and all of that. But that's all nonsense, really, because we just remain as the infinite being. And so if we don't consent to the idea that we're owning those thoughts and emotions, then we can just rest as the effortless being. Because
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Well, the source of the thoughts and emotions is an independent source. It's like, as I said, they're like rides. So there's our true nature is effortless being, unity consciousness, which is totally effortless, and it's also neutral, and it's just equality with everything. With the mind's more like a hierarchy, but it's also predatory because, as you noticed, it takes effort to engage the mind. And when you know that the thoughts and emotions, they're not ours, they're being kind of beamed in. So they're being beamed in as invitations. So you're resting as timeless being right in this moment. And then there are these options which are being beamed in. So there's an option to identify with the thinking, with concepts of limitation or with those emotions, but they're not yours. And once you know that, then it becomes much easier to exercise the option to decline those invitations, because you can see that what the foundation of all experience is what you truly are, which is effortless being. And then there's the option, if you wish to engage the mind. So if you go down to the supermarket, you're in effortless being, but then the checkout girl might say, oh, it's a nice day, and you say, oh yeah, I like this sunshine, I like September or something. So you just engage the mind for a couple of seconds to reply, and then you just turn it off again.
Yeah, it's just even the thoughts that arise effortlessly are not the mind. There's a difference. I can feel the difference between the whatever is happening, or when I engage the mind.
Yeah.
When I think, when I so it's like an organ. Like I always knew that. I just didn't know how to use it. I knew it was the same thing. Like you don't think about it's like sometimes you have to make an effort to breathe also.
Yes.
It's like, so it's the same thing. Like, or you have to make an effort to, like, sometimes you have to make efforts.
Yeah.
Bodily efforts. We're not, it's not like, of course, now I'm moving my hands and that goes effortlessly. But if I want to take my cell phone up, I have to, it's effortless, but it's not. You make the decision in your mind to take this. It's the same.
Yes.
It's the same thing. You make the decision to use your brain as the muscle when you go to the store and you need to remember what you need to buy,
Yes.
you're going to have to use that muscle.
Yeah.
But it's but all in the middle of it, and I think that's what it was so confusing to me. I can see it now. It's funny that the effortless thinking confused with the thinking, and then it becomes one big thinking,
Yeah.
and then it is a mess, and then you don't know anymore.
No.
You go from, you don't make the distinction between what's effortless and what's the chatter in the mind. Because I have a lot of effortless thinking,
Yes.
which you call, which what you said, and I relate to that, like intuition and knowing, just a knowing. And
Yes.
I hear it's not it's a knowing, and you use words because that's the way that our body is connecting with. That's exactly the body. That's why we have this body, so that we can function in this 3D reality as a effortless being.
Yes.
So when we use our vehicle, like you say, the car, for the sake of going around in the 3D reality as
Yes.
an effortless being.
Yes. And we can use it or we can
Yeah.
turn it off.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly. You can just, you don't need your car all the time. You
no,
just need your car if you go from A to B. Then you
exactly. Yeah.
step in your car. So and my body is just doing whatever it's doing effortlessly.
Mm.
It's breathing, it's like digesting, it's doing all this stuff. And also the thoughts are coming, but it's more like a knowing and intuition.
Mm.
But it's not the thoughts that you bring up.
No.
The the
Yeah.
the mind, like,
The thoughts which arise as invitations, which have an emotional component,
exactly.
which could be to do with fear or to do with, one of those emotions which are inviting you to identify with that thought and then consent to the identification, which then compromises your energy because it's only ever our own energy which is fueling it all anyway.
Yeah, and then you just go on the ride again.
You're back on, you've got your ticket out again.
Then go on the ride. I think my tickets are I don't have any tickets anymore. I think I use them all. I'm done. The tickets are, I don't, there's no need for me to go on those rides. I got it. I
Fantastic.
got it. I got
Yeah,
it.
that's brilliant. Fantastic.
It's really cool. Wow. Wow. It's so, it's so subtle. I think subtle is the right word, because there was thinking, but I wasn't, there is good. So in my terminology for the words that I use, there's good thinking and bad thinking.
Yes. The good thinking is arising in the wisdom
Effortlessly.
body from effortless being, and it's it's aligned with, it's the combination of infinite intelligence and infinite love. So that they're guiding you to your higher purpose, whereas the other ones are inviting you into identification with individuality and for your energy to be compromised. And
I'm
that's
telling you, my whole life, I just convinced my effortless being that it was wrong.
Wow.
That's why I'm laughing, because I always knew, and I would just think myself out of it because of what you called
Consent.
the consent. And I would just go in, and I would just create the same environment, the same situation, everything the same, because I would just like allow the brain, like the mind to just it's not even worth talking about. It just
Yeah. Yeah, because we have to be engaged with the mind to talk about it, don't we?
why would I even like
Why do you bother? Yeah.
you know what I
There,
mean? Like it's just like why
there's
even bother?
another dimension to the ride, though, Rika, which I just want to mention to you, which is that there is a transformation in consciousness which is taking place. And the transformation that's taking place is what Eckhart Tolle calls the end of the dream of identification with form. And that's really when we're compulsorily identified with the mental body. This is only a story, but I'd like you to just consider it, because the reason you've shown up at this time is because you're actually a representative of the infinite being. So the reason you came here is to actually embody and be able to communicate the attributes of the infinite being, and to make the distinction between your infinite nature and this theme park of these various rides which are available. So the way that happens is, as you were saying, that you recognize that moment of the download when you're consented. You walk through the gates of the theme park, basically, and and you're handed this big bundle of tickets.
I could have got worse tickets.
Yeah,
I feel like it wasn't.
yeah, you've had
It
some
could
nice,
have done worse. I could have done
yeah,
worse. It wasn't that bad. Just like, it was roller coasters.
yeah,
What am I gonna tell you? It's like it could have been worse.
exactly.
Yeah,
And it
100%.
is
I think
only,
we made a good decision. Like there was a lot of good. It was roller coasters, but I
yeah.
had fun. I had fun on my rides.
And they are only rides, and you can step off them. That's the thing. You don't need to
Yeah.
stay on the ride.
I can just do the fun part of the ride and just let the other side, the other
Yeah,
part. I step off when it starts to
exactly.
become ugly.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna go on rides anymore. I can tell it's not necessary. We're just making fun now. Just it's okay. We got it.
Great.
We got it. All right. So this was amazing. Thank you so much. Really.